Every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating young woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Well, hello, Gertrude, and all of your listeners from all over the world. This is so exciting to be here today. My name is Jennifer Williams. I am the owner and founder of a business in St. Louis, Missouri, which is in the United States, called St. Louis Closet Company. I founded this business 34 years ago when I was 25 years old. I was going to graduate school at St. Louis University and wasn't sure what I wanted to do and just sort of figured it out along the way. Along the way, I met a fellow entrepreneur and fell in love and got married 31 years ago to my husband. We have two amazing children. I have a 25-year-old son who is now working for me in my business, which is truly, it's just, every day I come to work and I get to work with my son and it's amazing. And I have a 23-year-old daughter who is in consulting and she works in Dallas. And that's it. When we're not working, when you have two entrepreneurs together, we're always working. But when we're not working, we love to travel and we would love to come visit you someday in Australia.
That is absolutely fantastic. What an experience you've had. So let's unpack your story and find out how it all started. What was the initial spark that led to you starting the St. Louis Closet Company? Well,
it's a great question. And I spent a lot of time talking to high school and college kids about entrepreneurship. I was young. I was in graduate school, and like so many graduate students, college students, even high school students, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was studying communications and I thought, well, maybe I'll get into marketing or advertising someday, but I just wasn't sure. I was living on my own, didn't have very much money. So I was waitressing and bartending to earn extra money and to pay for tuition. And I just didn't have that spark. I didn't have it. And I didn't know where I was going to find it. I felt like I was looking for it, but couldn't find it. So a friend of mine moved from California to St. Louis, and he opened up a custom closet company franchise. Now, this was 1991. And in 1991, custom closets this was a new crazy thing from the West Coast. Mm-hmm. He said, Jennifer, I think you would love this. Why don't you come work for me as a designer? So I kept going to graduate school. I kept my waitressing job, of course, because I needed money for sure. And I went to work for this closet company. After 2 weeks, I knew this was it for me. A light switch was turned on. A spark went off. I was so enthralled with this business of organization. First of all, the product was so exciting because once you would sell it, my customers would be excited about having it. Every day, if you think about it, you wake up every morning and you have to get dressed. Whether you go to your closet or a wardrobe, you have to get your clothes out. So this was like a gift that you got to open every single day. So I instantly saw the gratification, the satisfaction, the excitement of this product. And I knew right then, this is what I was going to do. So I dropped out of graduate school. I quit waitressing at 2 of the 3 restaurants, but I kept one just in case. And I quit working for the other closet company. And there I was. I had no business experience. However, I did grow up in a family of entrepreneurs. And I was like, I'm going to do this. So I wrote a business plan and I started calling banks because I needed a loan. I got 18 no's. 18. I still remember today, 34 years later, 18 no's. And finally, the Monday before Thanksgiving in 1991, I called a bank and this gentleman answered and he said, "You know what? It's a slow week. This sounds like a really neat idea. Why don't you come down and let's talk about it?" So I gathered up all of my information. I drove down to the bank. I presented everything. I told him I needed a loan for $50,000 to start. And like everybody else before him, do you have a cosigner? No. Is your dad going to help you? Are you married? No. And so I was like, but I can do it. I can do it. And he said, well, we'll get back to you. And I said, this week is Thanksgiving, and I would love to have something to be thankful for. And he actually called me at home on Wednesday before Thanksgiving and said I had been approved for the loan. So that's how I got started.
Wow, now that's incredible. And to think that that was a time where for a woman to go into business, she needed a male figure for her to get access to financing. Incredible. So you must have made a very good impression to get that loan.
Well, I don't know if it was a good impression or just determination, right? I mean, I tell people now, I'm like, you can't give up and
Yeah.
you can't let somebody, tell you no and just stop. You have to keep going. You can't take no for an answer, because if you believe in your product or your service, your business idea, and you want to get it going, you're going to hear no's all day long, right? Even after you've been in business for a long time. But you have to keep moving forward, and you can't ever take no for an answer.
I love it. Now, being in business at that time, how did you navigate the early days of being a woman in a male dominated industry?
Well, absolutely. So my business, it's pretty much considered a construction and manufacturing industry. And even today, it's still very male dominated. In the last 10 or 15 years, there's a lot more custom closet companies around the country owned by women, but it is still male dominated. But in the very beginning, it was hard. I have to say, not only was I a woman in a construction based industry, but I was 25 years old. So I was young and a woman. And it was really hard to get and earn the respect of contractors and home builders and even some of my customers. Now, I had one segment of my customer base who wanted to support me, right? They just loved the idea. I was this young woman, I was getting started, and they were like rallying behind me and lifting me up and helping me. And then there was this other segment that was like, wait, do you even know what you're doing? How old are you? What do you, and remember that in 1991, this was pre-internet, pre-Google, in custom closets, although people on the West Coast kind of knew a little bit more about it. St. Louis, Missouri, for all your listeners, we're right in the middle of the United States. And so it takes a while for things to come to Missouri. So this was such a new industry. And people are like, a closet? What do you mean a closet? My closet's just fine. I don't need a closet. So I had a lot of that going on with the, a little bit discrimination because I was a young woman. But once again, I didn't let that stop me, because I was like, you know what? I know what I'm doing. I have a great product, a great service. And if you would just let me show you, you will understand. And that's what I did with several of my builders. In the very, very beginning, did not want to give me a chance. And I just kept at it. And finally, they were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And still to today, those two first builders are some of my biggest customers.
Wow.
So
That's just incredible. So, what have been the most rewarding milestones over your 30-year journey?
well, there's been a lot. There's been a lot of milestones, a lot of good times, a lot of bad times. When you own a business, I think one of the most exciting, challenging things about owning a business is you come in every day and you don't know what to expect, right? You may have great days and you may have bad days, but it's always a new day and it's always new things coming at you. So it's sort of like a puzzle every day. You come in and you have to figure out the pieces and make it keep going. But some of the milestones along the way were when we grew to be big enough that I could buy my own building and manufacturing facility. That was in 1996. So between 91 and 96, I was just renting space.
Right.
And we just continued to grow. So finally, I was like, you know what? I need a storefront that has a showroom and offices and a manufacturing facility. So in
Right.
1996, I was able to buy my first building. That was very, very exciting. And then we continued to grow. And then in 2007, we bought a 30,000 square foot building and did a 2-year gut remodel, and we moved in, and we're still here today. Now, that was the super exciting milestone, but the really negative was in 2008, right when we moved into this new beautiful building, is when the Great Recession hit. And the
Oh,
housing industry and the banking industry and everything collapsed. So here I had this brand new, beautiful building, and all of a sudden my business just slowed down to almost nothing. So it took us several years to build that back up.
right.
So, and
Wow.
we did it, and it worked out okay, but it was a long few years of
Yeah.
challenging with finances and trying not to lay people off and trying to keep people employed and still offer our product and our service.
That's just incredible. So, what's the biggest lesson in what entrepreneurship has taught you up until this point?
Well, I think the biggest lesson is never give up.
Mm,
But probably the one thing that I feel like is so important is, in order to be a successful entrepreneur, successful business person, you have to be able to make decisions.
right.
And that is so critical, because if you're the type of person who just frets over every little thing and cannot make a decision, entrepreneurship is probably not your thing. Because
True.
every day you have to make so many decisions, and you have all these people relying on you, right? You
Yeah.
have your customers, you have your employees. And if you cannot make a decision, everything sort of stagnates, right? While you're
Mhm.
waiting for that decision. So I feel like you have to make the best decisions you can based
Yeah.
on your past and your experiences. And really, this is true about life also. But you have
Yeah.
to keep moving forward and know that along the way, some of those decisions may turn out to be not great.
Yeah.
But instead of beating yourself up, you have to pivot, take another road, but keep moving forward.
And you have to remember that you made that decision with the knowledge that you had
Mhm.
at that time, right? So a lot of times we beat ourselves up. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done that. But that was the knowledge you had at that time. And you have to forgive yourself for not an error, but a stepping stone to where you're really meant to be.
Well,
Now,
absolutely.
so how do you balance creativity and business in your work?
Well, being a custom closet designer, I feel like there's a lot of creativity when it comes to looking at spaces, because not
Mhm.
only do we do closets, we do laundry rooms and pantries and home offices and garages. So we'll do every area of the home and business. So
Okay.
you have to have this creative spark that you can see an open space and sort of envision it to be more organized. Now, my daughter is an artist. So I would
Okay.
say that she is really, really creative. Whereas I feel like I tend to be more um, defined and organized in my little, I'm more of a in a box type of creative person. Um,
Right.
whereas my daughter is the artist with the paints and the ideas, whereas I'm like, okay, give me a piece of graph paper and a ruler and a pen, and I can visualize the space really well, and then
Right.
bringing it to life is what I really love. But for me, the thing that I love about my business the most is the manufacturing. We
Wow.
actually manufacture all of the shelving and the drawers and the panels and the hanging rods. We manufacture all of that right here in our facility. So
Okay.
for me, being able to create a product and actually see it and touch it and feel it and work with it is really where I feel like the most creative.
Wow. So you've got a daughter who fires on the right-hand side of her brain. You're more analytical and logical by the sound of it.
Yes. And my son and I, which is why we work together and we sometimes butt heads a little bit, right? Because we're too much alike. Whereas my daughter and my husband are more of the creative artist type person.
I love it. So what advice would you give to women who are just starting their business journey?
Well, there's several things. One, you have to make sure that you have a really, really good idea, product, or service, right? It has to be
Mhm.
something that you know that a lot of people are going to need this or want this product. Number two, you have to love it. I mean, Gertrude, you have to love it, right? Because you're
So,
going to be married to this business. You're not getting away from this business. So you better really, really love it.
yeah.
And then third, you need to make sure you have all your research and have enough money. I think it's 9 out of 10 small businesses fail in the first 5 years.
Mhm.
And it's usually because of lack of financing. So you need to make sure you have your ducks in a row before you get started. That's really important.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
finally, I think hiring and surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you, that are going to, pull you up, make you a better person, but
Yeah.
allow you to continue the entrepreneurship part of the business while they're helping you along the way. Because I see so many business owners, they need to be in charge of everything because they're the smartest one in the room. Well, then
Mm.
you just can't physically do it all. And the way to be able to delegate and really make your life easier is to find people that are better at things than you are.
Yeah. That's why they say you always hire people who are smarter than you. That
Yes.
is so, so true. Now, how important has local community support been in your success?
I would say it's everything. Going back to the start of my story, when I said I had this whole segment of customer base that was rallying behind me,
Mhm.
and my local community just really supported me. We now have over 50% of our business is referrals and repeat business, and that's a
Wow.
huge amount of business. But just because my community supports me doesn't mean I don't owe them something, and I do. And I
Mhm.
feel like small businesses giving back to their communities is so important. And so many small businesses are like, I can't afford to donate money. I don't have time to do this. But I really believe that you can't afford not to do it
Yeah.
because it's a win-win for you and the community. Um, in March of 2020, I started a charitable arm called Closets for a Cause. And what we
Okay.
do is every quarter we partner with a local charity and we
Mhm.
figure out ways and we think outside the box. How can we work together to raise money or raise awareness or collect items that you may need and
Right.
really partner? And so it's a win-win. It's a win for my
Mm.
business because this charity is out there telling everybody how great St. Louis Closet Company is. And
Mm.
it's a win for them because they have this whole new exposure to the community. So, two different charities that we recently partnered with during this winter, we had a particularly super cold winter, worse than ever. And
Wow.
the homeless population in St. Louis, they were freezing to death, literally. And here I have all these customers who have coat closets that are overflowing with coats
Yes.
and hats and gloves that they don't wear. So we put together a real quick winter coat drive, and
Okay.
we collected 6 truckloads of coats and hats and gloves and sleeping bags. And we were shuttling them downtown to the homeless population and the shelters every other day. And
Wow.
so it helped the homeless population in St. Louis. It helped
Yes.
the charity, and it helped me because now all of my customers felt good about cleaning out a closet, and they called
Yes.
me to come design shelving for their closet. So,
Oh, that's so beautiful.
well, it's thinking outside the box. It's not
Yeah.
just writing a check.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? There's so much that can be recycled in different communities and still so much wastage as well.
Mhm.
And tapping into these resources, there are resources. Someone's old coat is somebody's new coat that can make a difference during winter. I
Absolutely.
love the way you think outside the box.
Yeah, it's just so important. Right now, we're working with a charity called Dress for Success, which
Okay.
I think you would love this. It's women and men who are trying to get their lives back together, whether they've gone through a hard time or a divorce or something, and they need to get out there and they need to interview and get a job, but they don't have professional clothes. So
Right.
once again, we reached out to our database and we're like, hey, we know you guys have lots of clothes. We've seen them.
Yes.
Can you please help? And my showroom is jam packed right now with, business suits and ties and
Oh, yes.
dresses and stuff.
Jennifer, this is music to my ears. So, my whole thing is about empowering, especially women, because when you empower a woman, you're empowering her children, you're getting her to get that job. Sometimes somebody doesn't even have something nice to go to the interview wearing something nice. And I need to connect you with a project I'm involved in your town in St. Louis. So my whole thing, as you know, is around the HIV issue. I grew up during the AIDS pandemic. My grandmother had 11 children. She had 34 grandchildren. By the time I left Africa, I had buried 19 first cousins. So my whole project started with me trying to raise money for the AIDS orphans in my immediate family. In the last 20 years, I've educated well over 20,000 kids in my community. But as I tell my story and go around the world, I've connected with other women. And there is a very special woman in St. Louis I will connect you with, who has an HIV project that's focused on women and children. So it's not a mistake that we're meeting today. I get excited by opportunities like this. Now, what do you see as your leadership style, and how has it evolved over the years?
Well, I am definitely a worker. I am, and I think because I am willing to do any job in this building, I think that my employees respect me more for that. And if I'm willing to come in, just for example, this Saturday, my shop, we had a really busy April. And so my
Wow.
manufacturing plant is running a little bit behind. And I asked 5 of my guys, I was like, can you please come in Saturday? We need to work a few extra hours. And of course, they all agreed. Well, so I was like, if they're coming in, I'm coming in. So I went and got breakfast and coffee for everybody. And I came in at 6 a.m. and I was out in the shop working with them while they were here. And I think that by showing your employees that, you're willing to roll up your sleeves and pitch in and work just as hard as they are, I think that is my leadership style, but it really, really works. Um,
Yeah.
I don't just sit behind a desk and, send emails. I am up, moving around, meeting with clients in the showroom, talking to people about their families and their kids. I have an amazing, amazing team of employees. We have 43 employees, and my average employee has been here for over 20 years. So
Oh, wow.
I know their families, I know their kids. We do fun things together. This Sunday, I sent everybody a text and I said, "Hey, I'm going to Target this morning. If you and your families would like to show up, I'll shop for you and pay for your bill." And I had, 17 of my installers and shop workers come in with their families, and they shopped and they bought groceries and clothes, and I paid for it for them. And I was right there with them the whole day at Target. It was so fun. So I think my
Um,
leadership style, like I said, I think I'm a worker. I'm not good at
yes.
sitting down. I like to know what's going on. And entrepreneurs, I think just by definition, we have lots of ideas and we're always, moving around and doing something. So I would say that that's my style.
Yeah.
I would say that through the years, I've been doing this for 34 years. The thing that has changed within me, I've become a better leader because I've become a better listener. Um,
Okay.
I think when I was younger and when I started my business, I wasn't as open to listening to others because I just felt like I know it, I know it, I know it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but now I'm better at listening and taking the time with people to figure out a solution. And maybe it's a
Yeah.
problem that has nothing to do with my business, but maybe it has to do with their family or their home life or their children. And to really listen and to sort of help them figure out a problem. And
Point.
once again, I think if you have an employer who does that, you garner respect
Yeah.
and loyalty. And my employees will, they would do anything for me because they know I would do anything for them.
Yeah. It goes both ways. It's not a one-way channel. I
Absolutely.
absolutely love that. Now, how are you maintaining innovation in a long-running business?
Well, that's a great question. We our industry is, although some parts of it are exactly the same as they were 34 years ago. I mean, exactly the same. The industry itself, I think, has expanded
Mm-hmm.
by offering more product lines like
Okay.
Murphy beds. I don't know if you're familiar with Murphy beds, where the
No.
bed, when you're not using it, it folds up against a wall flat, so you can
Yes.
use the room for other things. But then when you
Yes.
need the bed, you pull
You
it
fold
down, sleep
out.
on
Yeah.
it, and different things like that. We tend to follow the kitchen and bath industry.
Okay.
So as the kitchen and bath rooms get more elaborate and maybe they start doing more wood grains and more crown moldings and more decorative hardware, the custom closet industry sort of follows along. So
Okay.
I'm involved with several different closet organizations around the country. I
Wow.
attend all the different, you know, industry fairs for the kitchen and bath industry, the closet industry. And it also, I think, follows along with interior design and decorating. So for
Right.
me, I am constantly reading magazines, looking for inspiration on Pinterest and social media. Even if it's just like, what color is trending right now? Navy
Yes.
blue and celadon green are trending in the decorating industry. And I said, we need those colors in the closet. So we just brought on those two new colors.
That's quite interesting because I'd never thought of color in a closet, but you're right. Whatever is trending can be transferred. How
Absolutely. People are starting to
fascinating.
wallpaper their closets with big,
Okay.
beautiful wallpaper. And then we install the shelving in front of it, and you can see the back wall through the wallpaper. It's
Right.
beautiful.
Oh, how
Absolutely beautiful.
stunning. That is stunning. Now, my last two questions for you are a bit of a thought experiment. In the first one, I'm going to teleport you into the past. And we're going to go and meet that young woman who decided to go into the world of business, went to a bank manager, applying for money, not even knowing how successful she was going to be and how big this would turn out to be. Just in case there's a young woman who's listening to you right now, if you could go back and give yourself 3 nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those 3 nuggets of wisdom be?
I would definitely have started with more money, because it was tough. The first few years of my business, I was definitely underfinanced. And as a business owner, you pay yourself last. You pay your employees first, you pay your suppliers second, you pay yourself last. And I did not have much money left over to pay myself. So I think you have to make sure you are in a position in your life where you can afford to start your own business, whether it's getting a bigger loan or having someone else help you along the way. So that's important. I think that going back to what you said, we just talked about, I think I would have tried to be more patient and be a better listener when I was young. And I think that I would have benefited from that. Once again, you learn from your mistakes, right? If we don't make mistakes, I don't feel like we ever really learn. So although I wish I would have maybe done that back then, if I wouldn't have learned, maybe I wouldn't be doing it now. So I think that was really important. And I think I would have probably been more patient and forgiving with myself. I'm very type A personality where I want everything perfect. I want to do everything right. I want to work really, really hard. And when things don't go right, I tend to blame myself. And I think I would have been more forgiving of myself early on than I was.
Absolutely beautiful. Last question. I'm teleporting you into the future this time. And we are going to go and sit with a 90-year-old you. And she is surrounded by her children, her grandchildren, her dogs, her cats. Maybe she's on a dance floor. With science and technology, you'll probably live that long. But if I could teleport you to go and meet this wise woman who has led you up until this point, what will you say to her when you finally meet her?
I think I would say, congratulations. You did a pretty good job. I think I'm going to cry just thinking about it. I look at my children, and I am so proud of them. And they are such good kids. They are so smart. They are functioning human beings who are just out killing it in this world. And, being a mother, they're everything. They're everything to me. And I think that is definitely, my proudest thing. And then after them is my marriage and then my business. And I am, knock on wood, been very, very fortunate with all of those things. My kids are amazing. I have the most wonderful husband, and I have this great business that I love. So I think I would say, you did something right along the way. It wasn't easy, but nobody gave me anything. Nobody gave me money. Nobody paid for my education. I did it all on my own. And I think that, I'm getting to the point in my life now. I just turned 59 last week. And I'm getting to the point in my life where I'm kind of like, wow, you did this. You did this all on your own. And this is pretty cool.
That is absolutely beautiful. And I love the fact that you got emotional at the end there, because a lot of women don't realize that the wise woman is already in them. I believe that we're born with everything we need to manifest our dreams. But A lot of women look outside of themselves for the answers, for the guidance. Sounds to me like you're very in tune with the future you. You hear her promptings, you know those little nudges that tell you just go to the bank manager, keep applying despite 18 rejections, you know? And as women, we need to learn to trust ourselves and to go inside for the answer. So I love sharing a little thing that I do for myself. A game that I play is I play with the energy of who I am becoming. So if I'm working on something specific, I will go to sleep if I'm stuck, and before I go into my prayers and meditation, I will sleep with the question, what is the next step? And I just go to sleep, and I'm in the shower and I get those light bulb moments, and I know exactly what I need to do to execute next, right? Because your subconscious mind keeps going. It keeps working out these things you're going through. Or I share with other people what I'm working on. And it's like a jigsaw puzzle. One person will say this, the other person will say that. By the end of the week, it all comes together and I know exactly where I'm going. So Jennifer, thank you for being such an inspiration. It's a real honor to meet someone who is out there being an example of what's possible. And this is why I do what I do, to expose women to amazing people who are living life and not watching life go by. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely awesome. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We are a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to empower you with knowledge, with tools to take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So if you're sitting on the edge, not sure whether you should start your first business, here is a story that is so inspiring. Just do it. You will figure it out as you go. I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody, when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. Jennifer, don't go away. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates, and join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.